So, okay, guys, last part of session number two. So, let us start with attacking position. And in order to do that, let me share the screen with you. Okay. So, what happens when we are talking about the second or the third place in the market that, naturally speaking, they want to have a larger share? Okay. Think here in Mexico, Café Punta del Cielo or Café Cielito Querido. Naturally, they want to create conditions to compete with the Starbucks in a better way. Okay. Or simply speaking, PepsiCo versus Coke, or the lowest carriers in Europe versus the leadership of legacy ones. Okay. What is the main idea? You need to specialize and you need to appeal through one or two main features of your service to customers so that you can create a very important differentiator that would be appreciated. Now, the main idea, if you're the challenger, first of all, is to avoid a perspective of a Me Too product. Okay, what do I mean by this? If the big player has service 24 hours, if you offer the service 24 hours as well, it would not mean a clear differentiator. It would not help you as a challenger. Okay, the main idea is that you need to think, for example, in offering a complementary services on weekends, you would need to think on adding more staff during peak hours. And the main idea of challengers is to create new market segments to make the market a bigger one. Usually they stimulate it by pricing strategies, but they can also stimulate it by making sure that they can adjust their service offering to the particular needs, for example, of mothers, families without children, or perhaps millennials, just to name a few segments that may be extremely specific. Okay, now in the slide you see something called CTQ, that stands for critical to quality. Okay, when you're the challenger, you need to look for characteristics that the incumbents, the current players in the market, are not offering with the appropriate levels of quality, with the appropriate levels of service, and you can attack through that particular avenue. Now, as I was telling you in the launch of our course, the main idea is to give you tools that you can use in whatever kind of company you are. This is the first tool I want you to work and to reflect on that. It's called Matrix of Norm Deviations, and it was created by an author called Rich Horwath. Okay, what does this matrix tells you? If you ever want to attack a company, you have to understand which are the main characteristics of the product or service in the market that you are going to enter. Okay. For example, you may think about how is the purchasing and delivery, how much is the utilization of the product, what kind of standards of service are being offered. Okay. And the idea is understand and analyze what is the norm. I mean, what is the current standard. Okay. For example, the norm in purchasing and delivery of uh, airlines is to have a fare that gives you access to a baggage allowance, to some food on board, to some miles in the frequent flyer program. And what would be a potential solution to attack this kind of norm? In this case, the low cost carriers, they offer you to pay only for the fare and the rest of the services are ancillaries. I mean, you pay for what you need, you don't pay for what you don't need. Okay. For example, utilization in conventional phones, in conventional cellular phones, the norm is you use it for voice communication. Now, let me ask you something. How many of you use a smartphone for voice communication? Most of us use it for email, use it for WhatsApp, perhaps for voice messaging in WhatsApp. But we are increasingly using it for non-voice communications. So that was the solution that turned the smartphone into a highly competitive and dangerous rival to traditional manufacturers. So I hope you're following me. We will make one more example of the matrix of norm deviation in the next session. And perhaps you may go in a little bit more of depth with Liliana with this particular tool. But keep it in mind, this is important for you. Now, what are the signals? How do we know if we're in the position to attack? First of all, review your company. Okay, if we have an advantage in the business model that cannot be replicated in the short term, yes, we can attack. Okay, if we can neutralize either by cost or either by differentiation the leader's response, we are in good position to attack. The main idea is that we attack knowing that we can sustain over time this position so that we can carve a niche that no one else could take from us in time. Okay, that would be the signal to attack. Otherwise, refrain. We have another ways like flanking or warfare. Now, how do we attack a leader? Above all, remember, avoid the me too product. Do not imitate. Okay, try to improve the business practices in terms of logistics, in terms of convenience to customer, in terms of guarantees. Okay, try to create a differentiated offer for different segments. Okay, because the main idea here is to, above all, avoid the pure expenditure battles. I mean, how much deep is your wallet and how much deep is my wallet? This kind of battles only creates a market alteration because the customers are going to ask you for a lower fare every single time and no one else is going to win. Okay, another way to attack a leader is to create alliances. That's a very convenient and non-expensive way to carve a niche in the market. Now, how do you read if it is a good time to attack? First of all, take a good look at changes in technology. Okay, if you see a market is moving away from traditional deliveries like messengers and it is instead relying on distribution centers, that's a big shift. Okay, if the clients are more concerned about health rather than just buying any kind of beverage, that's another important shift that you should take into account. Okay, distribution channels cost, they may also signal that you are facing an opportunity. Okay, and you can also read signals of attack in a leading company. Okay, a company that is not highly specialized and it is spending a lot of money in many segments is a company that can be attacked very easily. Okay, naturally speaking, on happy clients, that's the very first sign. And if you are closely convenient enough to the company with unhappy customers, you may capture a lot of volume in the short term. Okay. Now, take a look at companies with high profitability. This would mean that they are having a very solid pricing strategy and perhaps the market is lacking options. So this may open a window for you. Okay. And in many countries, regulatory issues also signal an opportunity when the markets become deregulated. This is another clip I'll give you access to. This is about Qatar Airways, a leading company of the Middle East, that it is attacking not European companies. They are also attacking American companies with this kind of features that I am showing you in the slide. Okay, Giorgio Armani in flight amenities. That's not something any kind of airline can offer. That chef menus, meals on demand instead of a standard service in any of their cabins. Wi-Fi in all planes. This will become a leading standard for airlines. And these kind of companies, backed by strong governments, are creating a new business model for airlines around the world for long-haul traveling. Now, let me go through to the last two examples. Flanking. Okay, when you're not big enough, when you are not powerful enough in financial terms, you may look for underserved markets. Okay, attractive enough for you to go into them, but not so big that the leading competitors may follow you. This is the example of City Express hotels here in Mexico. Right now, they are the leading chain of hotels by the number of properties in the country. But the difference is that they are based in secondary cities, most of them, or they are based in secondary neighborhoods with a very basic model of low cost. Okay, in fact, they are now exporting their business model, for example, to Colombia. Okay, Subway is another good flanking example. They went to fast food, yes, with one twist: healthy fast food with sandwiches of fresh ingredients. Okay, that's an effective way of flanking. Swatch watches, they are not trying to compete with top luxury watches, but they are trying to compete on the basis of style and collections. And the last part, guerrilla or warfare. Okay, how small can you be to defend just a niche of the market? In New York, for example, there are many important newspapers. The first one, naturally speaking, New York Times. But there is one piece of newspaper that is specialized in financial terms, the Wall Street Journal. And you cannot go against them. They are dynamic enough and powerful enough just to sustain this particular niche. Okay, Aston Martin in cars. They send cars over order instead of massive production. Okay, and naturally they don't need to compete with Ford or General Motors. They know their market and they are flexible enough to cover it. Okay, how to flank or how to make warfare. Okay, be excellent in a highly specialized product. That's an important lesson here. And make sure that you can connect with something that we will talk later about moment of truth. Make sure that you can intervene in every single interaction with the customer so you can create loyalty in the long term. Okay, and create experiences. Don't settle only to deliver the product. If you ever buy an Aston Martin, you will see that you are not buying a car. You are receiving service. You are receiving differentiator. You are receiving status for your buy, for your purchase. Okay, and naturally speaking, don't get to rest. Okay, even if you are in a very small niche, you need to keep creating advantage within the group of customers. Now, why does it matter? Why is this important? Because your strategic position will evolve over time. Okay, you will not be fixed in a single one, and this will depend with your resources or with the changes in the market. Okay, and naturally speaking, this is also important to read the behavior of competitors and to know how to react to them. Okay, in that way you can be sure that you can create a good purpose of your company, and you can create a good business system that will help you to be more competitive in time. So with these ideas on the table, I will just send them to you by email, and I'll send you also a mini case of vitamin water. I want you to read it, please, because you will make a small discussion with Eliana, and I hope to see you next week, live, naturally speaking, to talk about the very first step, how to make our purpose, mission, and vision, and then derive the rest of the phases of the strategic process. So happy Sunday and stay in touch. Thank you.